What happens when the most powerful country on Earth tries to slam a door shut, and a tiny island nation just quietly walks around it? For years, America has been building walls around advanced technology, trying to keep the most powerful computer chips away from certain countries, spending enormous amounts of money and political pressure to control who gets access to the future. But there is one small nation sitting quietly near the equator that keeps showing up in the middle of this entire story, and it is not backing down, not panicking, and not playing by the rules everyone expected. That nation is Singapore, a country smaller than most cities, yet somehow standing shoulder to shoulder with global superpowers in one of the biggest tech battles of our time. Today we are going to walk through exactly how this tiny nation became such a massive headache for American export controls, why the chips keep slipping through, what history tells us about Singapore's secret weapon, and what this entire situation teaches us about power, strategy, and staying calm when giants are shouting at you. Stay with me because this story is far wilder than most people realize. Point 1. The giant versus the dot on the map. Picture a map of the world. America is massive, stretching across an entire continent. Singapore is a single dot, so small you could fit thousands of them inside the United States. Yet somehow this dot keeps ending up at the center of America's biggest technology fight. The reason is simple once you see it. Singapore sits right at the crossroads of global shipping, tucked between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, making it one of the busiest trade harbors on the entire planet. When America decided to restrict advanced computer chips from reaching certain buyers, it assumed the world would simply follow along quietly. But trade does not work like a light switch you can just turn off. Goods flow through hundreds of hands, dozens of countries, and countless paperwork trails before they reach their final destination. Singapore, sitting right in the middle of that flow, became an accidental spotlight. Every chip that passed through its ports got noticed, every shipment got questioned, and suddenly this small, calm nation was standing right in the blast zone of a fight between two giants, without ever throwing a single punch itself. Point 2. The mystery of the missing chips. Once the spotlight landed on Singapore, something strange started showing up in the numbers. Reports began circulating that a surprising share of high-end computer chips exported from major American chip companies were somehow ending up recorded as sold to Singapore, far more than the tiny country could possibly need for its own use. Think about it like ordering 1,000 pizzas for a birthday party of only 10 people. Something clearly did not add up. Investigators and journalists began digging, wondering if these chips were simply passing through Singapore on paper, only to quietly continue their journey somewhere else entirely, somewhere that was not supposed to have access to them at all. This mystery exploded across headlines, with American officials demanding answers and companies scrambling to explain their own sales records. Singapore, for its part, did not throw a tantrum or panic under the pressure. It calmly stated that if any laws were broken, it would investigate and act, but it refused to be dragged into hysteria. That calm, steady response only made people more curious about how this small nation always seems to stay so composed under enormous global pressure. Point 3. Following the paper trail. Let us slow down and really understand how something like this happens, because it is not as simple as chips walking across a border by themselves. When a company sells advanced chips, the shipment often lists a buyer address, and that address does not always match where the chips truly end up being used. A shipment can legally arrive in Singapore, get processed through a local company, and then legally move again to another destination, all while the paperwork looks completely normal on the surface. This is sometimes called transshipment, and it happens constantly across countless industries, not just technology. The challenge is that bad actors can hide inside this normal process, using legitimate-looking routes to disguise where products truly end up. Singapore has one of the most efficient shipping and logistics systems in the entire world, which is exactly what makes it so attractive for honest trade and, unfortunately, also attractive for anyone trying to slip something through unnoticed. It is like having the smoothest, fastest highway in the world, which is wonderful for everyone driving safely, but also incredibly tempting for anyone hoping to speed past unnoticed in the flow of traffic. Point 4. A nation built on staying neutral. To really understand why Singapore reacts so calmly under pressure, we need to rewind the clock. Singapore was founded as a trading port centuries ago, built specifically on the idea of welcoming ships and goods from every corner of the earth without picking favorites. British traders, Chinese merchants, Indian businessmen, and Malay sailors all worked side by side in the same harbor because trade only flourishes when everyone feels welcome and safe. That same spirit never disappeared. Modern Singapore built its entire identity around being the place where rival countries can still do business together, even when those countries are arguing everywhere else in the world. This is not an accident. It is a carefully guarded strategy passed down for generations. Being neutral is not weakness. It is actually one of the most powerful positions a small nation can hold, because everyone needs you. No one wants to lose you, and that gives you a seat at the table that your size would never normally allow. Singapore did not stumble into this power. It built it brick by brick over decades. Point 5. Why every company wants an address there. Beyond shipping routes, there is another reason global chip companies love doing business through Singapore, and it comes down to something surprisingly simple: trust. Singapore has spent decades building a reputation for clean laws, fast approvals, low corruption, and a government that treats businesses fairly no matter where they come from. When a company chooses where to register a regional office or route a shipment, they are choosing a place that will not randomly change the rules overnight or freeze their assets over a political disagreement. This reputation took generations to build, and it means something enormous in the business world. Imagine two banks holding your life savings. One has a long, spotless record of doing exactly what it promises, and the other constantly changes its policies with little warning. You would choose the steady one every single time. Global technology companies think the exact same way when deciding where their goods should pass through, and that steady, trustworthy reputation is precisely why so many chips, so much money, and so many contracts flow directly through this one small nation, whether America likes it or not. Point 6. Walking a tightrope between two giants. Here is where things get truly fascinating, because Singapore is not just avoiding America. It also has a close, complicated relationship with China, one of America's biggest rivals in this entire chip conflict. Most countries feel forced to pick a side, aligning fully with one giant while distancing themselves from the other. Singapore refuses to play that game. It continues trading with China, continues welcoming American businesses, and continues hosting military cooperation with the United States, all at the same time, like someone gracefully balancing on a tightrope between two skyscrapers without ever looking down. This is an incredibly difficult balancing act, because one wrong move could anger either superpower and cause real economic damage. Yet Singapore has managed this dance for decades, through wars, through trade fights, through shifting alliances, without ever completely losing the trust of either side. That is not luck, that is master-level diplomacy, built on decades of careful, patient decision-making by leaders who understood that survival for a small nation depends on being useful, not being loyal to only one side. Point 7. The money that never sleeps. Trade and chips are only part of the story, because Singapore has also become one of the largest financial hubs on the entire planet, sitting right alongside cities like London and New York in terms of global money flow. Investors from every continent park their wealth there because of stable laws, strong banking privacy protections, and a currency that rarely swings wildly overnight. When American pressure increases anywhere else in the region, money often flows towards safety, and Singapore has positioned itself as exactly that safe harbor. Billions of dollars move through its banks every single day, funding businesses, powering deals, and yes, sometimes financing technology purchases that eventually connect back to chips and trade routes. This financial power gives Singapore even more leverage in this entire conflict, because it is not just moving goods, it is moving the money behind those goods. When you control both the shipping lane and the financial pipeline running through a region, you become almost impossible to simply push aside, no matter how large or powerful the country trying to apply pressure happens to be. Point 8. When pressure meets patience. America has tried multiple approaches to close these loopholes, tightening rules, demanding stricter reporting, and pressuring allies to enforce harsher checks on where chips actually end up. Singapore has responded the same way every single time, calmly agreeing to review its own laws, cooperating where it makes sense, but never rushing into panic or blindly following every demand without question. This patient, steady approach frustrates critics who want faster, harsher action, but it also protects Singapore's most valuable asset, its reputation for fairness and stability. Think of it like a skilled negotiator in a heated meeting, staying calm while everyone else raises their voice, because they know that whoever keeps their composure usually walks away with the better deal. Singapore understands that reacting emotionally to pressure often causes more damage than the original problem itself. By staying measured, transparent about its own investigations, and firm about protecting its economic independence, Singapore has managed to satisfy enough of America's concerns to avoid serious punishment, while still preserving the open trading relationships that make it so valuable to literally everyone involved in this massive global chess match. Point 9. The lesson hiding inside this story. If you zoom out far enough, this entire situation becomes a powerful lesson that goes way beyond chips and shipping routes. Singapore proves that size is not the only measure of strength in this world. A country does not need the biggest army or the largest economy to hold real influence. It needs to become genuinely useful to everyone around it. Singapore made itself so essential to global trade, finance, and stability that even a superpower like America has to negotiate carefully rather than simply bulldoze its way through. This lesson applies far beyond nations too. A small business, a single person, or even a small team can hold surprising power if they position themselves as trustworthy, essential, and calm under pressure, rather than trying to compete purely on size or volume. The world often assumes bigger automatically means stronger, but Singapore quietly reminds everyone watching that being indispensable, reliable, and strategically smart can outweigh raw size every single time. And that is a lesson worth remembering far beyond the world of international trade and computer chips. Point 10. What happens next in this global chess match? So where does this story go from here? America continues tightening its export rules, hoping to close every possible gap that allows advanced chips to slip toward restricted buyers. Singapore continues strengthening its own oversight while refusing to abandon the open trading identity that built its entire economy. Neither side appears ready to fully back down, which means this quiet standoff will likely continue for years to come, shifting and evolving as technology keeps advancing faster than any single set of rules can fully contain. New chip generations, new shipping methods, and new financial tools will keep appearing, and Singapore will almost certainly keep finding legitimate ways to stay at the center of it all. The real question is not whether America can completely stop this flow, because history shows global trade is nearly impossible to fully seal shut. The real question is whether other nations start studying Singapore's playbook, learning that quiet confidence, careful neutrality, and genuine usefulness can turn even the smallest country into one of the most important players on the entire world stage. We just walked through one of the most fascinating power struggles happening quietly in our world today, a story about a giant nation trying to control the future of technology and a tiny island refusing to be pushed around, not through anger or defiance, but through calm confidence built over generations. What makes this story so powerful is not just the chips or the trade routes. It is the reminder that true strength often looks quiet, patient, and steady rather than loud and aggressive. Singapore did not win by shouting the loudest. It won by becoming impossible to ignore. If this story made you see the world a little differently today, if it opened your eyes to how power really works behind the headlines, then let me know by hitting that like button right now, because it genuinely helps this channel grow. Drop a comment below and tell me what surprised you most about this entire situation. I read every single one and love hearing your thoughts. And if you want more stories like this, the kind that reveal the hidden strategy behind the biggest global headlines, make sure you subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and I will see you in the very next video.